On this episode of Just Informed Talk, as Kanye West is scheduled to have a lunch with President Trump, are social media giants gaming the system ahead of the midterms? And we learn the real reason why the Carter Page FISA was redacted and much more. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always like to say thank you to all my subscribers. When you guys hit that button, it helps channel out more than you'll ever know. So if you haven't done that already, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you're notified when these videos get posted. So this is where we're going to start. This is the latest Q post. Right here is where we left off, and if you guys want to get caught up on that, I encourage you to come back here, watch this last video, and watch these last few videos as far back as you want. It'll get you caught up on all the Q posts that have been put up since almost, or basically back to day one. So also, if you scratch your head going, what's QAnon? I really want you guys to come here, watch this video. It gives you a good idea of what QAnon, the Great Awakening is, how to find the information, how to do the research. All of that is right there in that video. And even if you know all that stuff already, please share that video on your social media and share all the videos as well. So today, this is where we're starting. And it's a Twitter post from Reuters, which talks about how Secretary Pompeo has basically said the North Korean leader Kim says he's ready to allow international inspectors to check out their nuclear sites. Now, this is a huge step in the right direction. And of course, you hear crickets from the mainstream media, maybe a few stories here and there, but really, this, as with the fervor that they covered when it with North Korea, when it was about to jump off, and they tried to hype it up as President Trump was going to drive us into this crazy war, all of that hyperbole that was used, with all of that fervor that was behind that, you hear basically nothing in comparison when it comes to diplomacy working for President Trump and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. So this is just another example of how the fake news works. They amplify the stories that help their narrative, and they basically underreport to they either underreport or don't report at all stories that would be favorable to the president and his agenda and what he's been doing since he's taken office. So this is just one more example, and I want to commend Secretary Pompeo on his work, and President Trump, obviously. It's been an incredible reversal of the situation where we were at one point ready to go to war, and now North Korea is actually considering allowing international inspectors in. I mean, who would have thought we'd be here? You wouldn't have thought that if you were watching the news, that's for sure. So that's what Q wants us to look at. Now, here in the next one, Q gives us this old post from September 23rd, which talks about talks about what will happen when the Carter Page FISA is declassified. It'll show Rod Rosenstein, basically incriminated himself, I guess, when he signed off on these warrants to go and surveil the president, and now he's the one in charge of the declassification, which is a major conflict of interest, which is why Inspector General Horowitz was assigned to take over that process, and now it's going to continue to come out. There's more and more that comes out every day, especially with James Baker and his testimony. And what Q was telling us back then, and this was, at this point, a few weeks ago, Q was telling us that it's all going to come out, that it was all, when we saw this whole story drop about Rod Rosenstein going to, wiretap the president, that it was bait for President Trump to fire him, to, give the Democrats an excuse to impeach President Trump, and another talking point for the fake news to use against President Trump. And what it goes on to say here is interesting. It also talks about how the United Kingdom and Australia were involved in this. And it says they must learn the true definition of ally, because you're not an ally to our country if you're using your own intelligence agencies to spy on our political candidates for the benefit of an opposing party to that political candidate. That is okay, that's beyond the scope of anything I would ever expect for us to do to them or them to do to us, especially if they consider themselves real allies. Now, it goes on to talk about Rod Rosenstein and how they signed these warrants, and that there was a grand jury that's already been impaneled to investigate all this, and that the McCabe memos, the ones that came out which showed that Rod Rosenstein was talking about wearing a wire, it was all the rats panicking. So Of course, Q says, but of course, Anons already knew POTUS would not be baited to fire. Think red line Q. So this was all about trying to get President Trump to fire Rod Rosenstein, and now you're seeing basically the opposite thing happen. You're seeing the resignation more and more likely every single day. So especially as more information comes out about these. So that's basically what Q's getting at there. And then again, Q gives us an older post here in the next one from September 28th, where it talks about the Democrats' playbook for the midterm election. They will impeach Justice Kavanaugh. Zero corroborating evidence and all factual witnesses provided by accuser, all denied allegations. But should we take control in November? That's the Democrats' talking point they're going to use now. Talks about liberal left lunacy. These people are evil, sick, and stupid. And how we're watching the systematic destruction of the old guard. And that's what it said. And then here is Q giving us this Fox News article, which talks about how the Dems are waging war on Kavanaugh, and they're going to talk about his legitimacy, and they're going to talk about impeachment and recusal, because, obviously he's just the worst person ever, because of somebody somebody made these allegations against him without any corroborating evidence. So I guess that makes him guilty by accusation. Right? We're just guilty by accusation alone in this time frame that we live, where you don't need evidence, you don't need to give somebody due process, you don't need a presumption of innocence. You know what you need? You just have to make a claim. That's all it is. It can be the most ridiculous claim that without any evidence to prove it, but we have to believe the person who makes the accusation. Now, in this new Orwellian dystopia that the media and the politicians on the left and right, I should say, have created, right, through this game that they play. But Q says, but of course, Anon's new Democrats' playbook regarding Kavanaugh. Think herd, sheep. Think 2/3 Senate vote required to impeach impossible. Q. So they're going to push for this regardless of they know they're not going to get 60 votes to impeach Kavanaugh, but they're going to try to twist it and get him impeached and talk about, we're going to, basically try to make him recuse himself, because obviously he's just completely tainted by this whole process of confirmation and advise and consent that went on in the Senate. And it's just a ridiculous thing, but this is what we're dealing with, and this is how they're going to basically move the people to stand up against Kavanaugh. It seems like now Kavanaugh's going to be this rally cry for the Democrats and the liberal left to say, yeah, well, you have to go out and vote. And I'll tell you what, social media, these giants are getting worse and worse. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But that's exactly what Q is talking about here. And we're going to have to wait and see how that all plays out. So even though it is playing out in real time. Now, the next one is this piece from The Hill. And as I read this piece, it talks about the FBI smoking gun redactions protected political embarrassment, not national security. So what this whole John Solomon article talks about is the fact that they were redacting things out of the FISA for purely to avoid political embarrassment and not for national security. But then they made the case, our allies won't trust us if we expose this information. But that's so ridiculous when you're using, the former administration was allegedly using the UK and Australian intelligence to spy on President Trump, and then to skirt our own laws our own laws protecting the privacy of individuals. So this to me, and then also that it's technically meddling in our election. So there's just the hypocrisy here is palpable, and you guys can see it for yourself what this is all shaping up to be. And I hate to say it, but the reality is what this is all shaping up to look like is that James Baker is going to expose the fact that the FBI and the DOJ were working basically wholeheartedly against President Trump at the behest of the Obama administration, at the behest of the DNC and Hillary Clinton. So, this is what we're dealing with. And this article actually talks about a few different important facts, and a few things I pulled out of it just talking about all this is that what John Solomon wants us to look at is this footnote. It's footnote 43. It's on page 57 and chapter 3 of the House Intelligence Committee's report earlier this year. And it's wasn't considered much because it was redacted, but now we're realizing that what that basically was talking about was the fact that they were basically trying not to release this information publicly to avoid political embarrassment, and that is exactly what James Baker had talked about. And I'll just read a little portion of it where it says, then last Wednesday, I broke the story that Baker admitted to Congress in an unclassified setting, repeat, in an unclassified setting, that he had met with a top lawyer at the firm representing the Democratic National Committee and received allegations from that lawyer about Russia, Trump, and possible hacking. It says, it was the same DNC, along with Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, that funded the unverified salacious dossier by a British intel operative, Christopher Steele, that became a central piece of evidence used to justify the FBI surveillance of the Trump campaign in the final days of the election. It says, and it was the same law firm that made the payments for the dossier research so those could be disguised in campaign spending reports to avoid the disclosure of the actual beneficiaries of the research, which were Clinton and the DNC. There is now a concrete storyline backed by irrefutable evidence. The FBI allowed itself to take political opposition research created by one party to defeat another in an election, treated it like an actionable intelligence, presented it to the court as substantiated, and then used it to justify spying on an advisor for the campaign of that party's duly chosen nominee for president in the final days of a presidential election. And when 9 months later, the FBI could not prove the allegation of collusion between Trump and Russia, unverified evidence was leaked to the media to try to sustain public support for a continued investigation. That means the redaction of footnote 43 had more to do with political embarrassment than national security. And that should concern us all. So this is just incredible. I mean, we're getting these verifications and validations of what we have suspected for so long. John Solomon's report here basically tells us we have a concrete storyline backed by irrefutable evidence that the FBI allowed itself to take political opposition research created by one party to defeat another in an election. That is election meddling. They treated it like actionable intelligence. So they knew this stuff was tainted, and then they used it, presented it to the court as substantiated, and then used it to justify spying on an advisor for the Trump campaign. So I don't know about you, but I'm very, very upset at the FBI and the DOJ and the Obama administration and the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign and Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele. I mean, come on. We're putting the pieces together here, and it's going to continue to come out. But Q says, why not, if true? Democrats do not want declassification to prove POTUS was colluding with Russia. Why are Democrats opposed to declassified if what they say is true? Declassified would prove evidence versus POTUS to obtain FISA warrant. Why the block? Define projection. See article above. Redactions made to protect exposing the real truth. Logical thinking. McCabe memos, source, NYT, New York Times article, or New York Times Rod Rosenstein article about wearing a wire. Sessions subpoena, McCabe memos delivery to House Baker testimony, House what was learned, Democrats. Next up, Rod Rosenstein testimony, House locked and loaded, Q. Okay, so breaking all this down really quickly, it's saying why wouldn't the Democrats want to basically air this all out, to declassify, to get all of this stuff out in the open? You know why? Because they know it has nothing to do with national security. It would be an embarrassment to them and their party for us to know, as the American people, the American electorate, that they tried to use our top law enforcement agency and the Department of Justice in conjunction with the Obama administration to meddle in our own elections. Like we're some kind of third world country where they can just, basically use the fact that they're in power against the American people who want to democratically elect somebody. See, that is the biggest thing here. And they're fighting, it's about national security. It's about national security. The only thing that would be a problem for national security is the fact that it'll be exposed that the UK and Australia were allegedly involved in this action and participated willingly. So it says, why are Dems opposed to declassified if what they say is true? That's a great question. But it's because it would prove with evidence that they used, or basically what we just went over, that they used the FBI to spy on President Trump. So with this FISA warrant, and they continued to do it. So Q says projection, yes, it's them projecting what they did, and saying we can't look at that. Don't look over here. Look over here. And when you go through the article, it talks about how that is exactly what happened. And when we use our logical thinking, we can understand that the McCabe memos were the source for the New York Times article about Rod Rosenstein wearing a wire. When we use our logical thinking, we can understand that the Sessions subpoena is how Jeff Sessions has been basically now read in on stuff that otherwise he would not have been able to look at, because he could not examine Rod Rosenstein in the Russia probe until the McCabe memos were used in that story. And then that's how this all kind of snowballed down. So the McCabe memos were given to the House, and now they know exactly the truth of what that is. And if we use logical thinking again, you have James Baker's testimony, where he's talking about all of these things, where you just had the story break today that Q's going to show us in a minute, that talks about how James Baker says it was not a joke. Nobody was laughing. It was not a joke. Rod Rosenstein was seriously considering wearing a wire and going to the Trump administration and trying to enact the 25th Amendment. But, next up, Rod Rosenstein on October 11th is set to testify in front of the House committee on, I believe it's the intelligence, but that is really something we're looking forward to, locked and loaded Q. So they're going to have all these really great questions. I can't wait to watch that. If it's open, I'm not sure. Or if it's closed, then we'll have to wait to hear reports about it. So the next one here is Q giving us this post again, an older Q post from January 7, 2018, where it talks about how we were basically being scammed. It says U.S. taxpayers are paying for it all. Paris Accord equals scam in the trillions. Red Cross equals scam in the billions. Foreign aid equals scam in the trillions. War equals scam in the trillions. On and on. Who audits where the money actually goes? Who actually receives the money? The U.S. taxpayers funding the very people we are engaged in taking down. Slush funds everywhere. It says, think George Soros pays for Antifa out of his own pocket. The hole is deep. Feels sick yet Q. And then it gives this basic confirmation of Q here out of a FOIA request from Judicial Watch. So what Tom Fitton did is they went and filed a case to have Freedom of Information Act disclose documents showing ties between Soros Foundation and the U.S. government. And what did they find? Back in 2015, the United States State Department was actually working with George Soros group, a Soros-backed group, to channel money to the mercenary army of far-left activists in Albania. Now, this is just one example, but this gives you an idea of how they do it. It talks about how back in 2015, under the Obama administration's purview, let's remind people that the State Department was openly backing efforts by George Soros' operatives to go into Albania and to basically spur this left-wing election push, right? Now, this is just one example of many, but this is important because Q says, but of course Anons already knew this. Knowledge is power, Q. So we all know that there are outside forces trying to meddle in our elections, whether it's George Soros, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, and they're all putting their little fingers into it, and they're manipulating you, and they're manipulating the algorithms, and they're manipulating these so-called grassroots movements of people out in Capitol Hill, filling up the halls of Capitol Hill. You have Antifa, for instance, in Seattle, directing traffic, shutting down roads as if they're the police. And nobody's stopping them. I've seen the videos. I'm not making this up. I'm watching literal Antifa protesters screaming at people. First of all, there's one very telling scene in the whole thing. You have an Antifa activist, whatever, protester, yelling at a man who will not turn because they're trying to direct traffic, and the guy's like, who are you, and why are you telling me where I can drive? And he's literally just being called a whitey. That's what they called him, as if it's derogatory to be of a certain skin color, which I would never do because I'm not a racist, and it just, to me, is the most frustrating thing. And then the camera pans over. The guy's on the phone with the cops, right? He's like, "Can you please come get somebody down here?" And the camera pans over, and there's a cop standing there about a block away, not doing anything, allowing these nut jobs, let's be honest, to stand out in the middle of the street, try to force people to go in different directions, and then scream these racially charged epithets in their mind at them, right? And nobody's doing anything, but it's all backed by a bigger machine. All of this is a part of this whole cultural movement that is being it's being funded and supported by different organizations, corporations who have the vested interest to push against Trump's movement to make America great again, to make America first, and to put our sovereignty above their global hegemonies that they want to create and run. So this is a big deal, guys, and this is what Q has been telling us. This is what President Trump has been saying. This is what our whole movement is about standing up to. We're standing up for the right of our country to govern itself, to not be governed by these outside forces who believe they're above the law, they're above any kind of reproach of the American people, and they're above the fact that we have a democratic system. They think they can just game the system because, it's kind of unfair when you think about how Google games and manipulates search algorithms. It's kind of unfair when you think about how YouTube kicks people off their platform for speaking certain truths that they don't want to hear. It's kind of unfair when you see that Facebook takes people and just removes them from basically existence and bans them, and Twitter does the same thing. So this is a very big deal, and that's what Q's pointing us to. So if you guys have different or any more takes, please let me know. Now the next one is a video we watched in one of our latest videos, which is Devin Nunes on Mornings with Maria, which is Maria Bartiromo's show. And basically Devin Nunes is breaking it down about how the Russia probe was basically an ill-gotten venture, and they used stories they planted in the New York Times and others and Yahoo News as predicate for it, and how there's more information coming out every day. But what Q wants us to look at is look at the views. Q says there's 113,000 added views here since posting this video to the Q board. And what that really talks about, it says 113 plus thousand suppressed new views in less than 24 hours. Your voice is spreading. Q. Well, why is that important? It's important for the simple fact that we're getting this information out there. And that's what they're trying to stop. I mean, look, I know with my channel, they have ways and tactics they've been doing for quite some time that are quite obvious to keep videos, I think, from going viral. And that's just my personal opinion. And it would seem that that's something I have to deal with. It is what it is. But at the same time, you guys are the ones who are making the difference. You're coming, you're sharing this information, you're finding this information, you're doing what it takes to get it out there, because it's up to us. We can be people of morals and ethics, but we can also be people who stand up for those, and to express them openly is part of what it means to be an American, in my opinion. So that's really what it comes down to. Now the next one is very interesting. It's this graphic that was put up by Q that says 10 minutes before Kavanaugh is confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, and it's a meme that basically shows this Jeep as being the Democrats, and Christine Ford is this woman who's being, I guess, pushed out, I would presume. And it's saying, it's talking about that Breaking 911 post where it says Christine Blasey Ford has no further plans to pursue her sexual misconduct allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. So according to her attorneys. And then Q gives us this Fox News article, which is a piece by Peggy Grand, which talks about Dianne Feinstein and showing her true colors in the Kavanaugh fight. Well, yes. I mean, look at what happened. Dianne Feinstein was a pit bull out there. There was no, basically, let's put it this way. However, whatever you think about Christine Blasey Ford, her connections to this, her connections to everything, and then the story that she told without any evidence, uncorroborated, unverified, that's beside the point. I think what Lindsey Graham said was the best, that Ford was just as much a victim as Kavanaugh being used. She was being used by the Democrats. And that's the exact graphic that Q gives us where, look, they drop it. Oh, the day after or day before Q or Judge Kavanaugh is confirmed, they basically say, oh, well, we're just going to go ahead and not going to file anything or go further. Oh, how convenient, right? To use somebody like that and then kick them out of the metaphorical car here at the moment that it's inconvenient to have them. And in all fairness, Christine Ford's done great. She's made what, $1 million from this? So I don't even know what to say. And Q says hashtag walk away Q. And that's the movement. It's walking away from the Democrats, I think, is a movement that's becoming very popular. And what it's really talking about, I think, is the fact that people are waking up to the reality of the Democratic Party and what their tactics are and what their motivations are, and how it's never really about the people. It's about themselves, about maintaining power, maintaining control, maintaining authoritarian grip over the narrative. That is what they're most inclined to do. Now, the next one here is a few articles Q gives us where it basically says, do you believe in coincidences? Data provided to the Democratic Party affiliate to target voters for November 6th election, win at all cost Q. Now, what's this referring to? Well, it's referring to a few different things here. First, you have this Wall Street Journal article which shows that Google exposed user data, feared repercussions of disclosing to public. And this talks about something that happened a while ago where Google actually had exposed the private data of hundreds of thousands of users of the Google Plus social network, and then opted not to disclose the issue last spring. And why would they opt not to? Because obviously they were embarrassed. But the reality is that information, and this being uncovered now, would lend itself to what Q's trying to allege here or insinuate, which is that Google exposed that data on purpose to provide information for the upcoming midterm elections so that they could basically look at individuals and use that information against them. Now, the next article that Q gives us is this one about from the New York Times about Facebook security breach exposes counts of 50 million users. And then this next one, which talks about how the Twitter says a bug may have exposed some direct messages to third-party developers. Now, what does this all basically add up to? Well, it all adds up to this. Data was provided to Democrat Party affiliates to target voters for November 6th election because they want to win at all costs. So they're going to use your private information to appeal to you in a way that can get you out there and get you to vote. I know for me, my social media has gone crazy. Like, I can't turn on Facebook now without it telling me, voter registrations today or tomorrow, and reminding you, get out and register to vote. And these are not people's tweets. These are like suggested views. You should watch this, or this is a sponsored tweet. Here, go out and vote. Vote Democrat. They're so great. This is all peaches and cream. And look, Kavanaugh's so bad. We have to go out and stop him. That is what I'm seeing on my social media, and it's force fed. I don't want that stuff. That stuff wouldn't be something I would normally go out and find or look at. This is being force fed, and it's being force fed on everyone. You know why? Because it's quite simple. The whole strategy is use these big tech social media giants to game the system against voters in this upcoming election. I mean, you see the push now. They're pushing people to go out and register to vote. And it's not just a few people. It's getting these people in the voting booths, as many bodies as they can, because they've changed tactics, and now they're doing anything and everything they can to fight against President Trump, to fight against the will of the American people with this. You talk about Russia getting a few $100,000 worth of Facebook ads. What if Facebook, the multi-billion-dollar company, uses its own algorithms and its own private information that it can get from you, and Twitter using that private information it can get from you, and Google using that private information they can get from you to target these people who they know probably don't vote. So then they target them, they push them, they put these stories in their feeds, they put all these ads in their feeds, they put these videos, they're guilting them into doing something because it's all targeted, and they're trying to perfect the means by which they will control the electorate from here forward. Tech companies want to control the American electorate so they can put politicians in place who will favor globalist policies so that they can take advantage of our country even more than they already have. And that's why they're going to try to win at all costs. It's disgusting. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here. This is why a big part of the reason I'm here fighting this every day, because they are literally the Goliaths, and we are basically the Davids here, looking at them going, how do you stop that? And you know how you stop it? One little rock. That's what it is, right? It's metaphorical, guys, okay? So this right here, the next one is Q giving us this graphic. Now, what is this graphic? This graphic is talking about pretty interesting stuff here. So Q's post from October 8th, yesterday, talks about the Hill, and then it talks about this post from the 15th of September, where it says that they were going to prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. This was what you cannot do. That's the limitations and prohibitions of classifying information as far as the executive order signed by President Obama. Remember that. And it goes on to point out in these other articles that we looked at. First, let's look at this. In the John Solomon report, where it talks about the footnote 43, it says it had more to do with political embarrassment than with national security, and that should concern us all. But Q told us about this a while ago, right? Q told us about this back in September, that this particular reason was why they did it. And so we've had the information, we've had it all along. And then this is a part of Executive Order 13526, which was signed by President Obama, which says directly, you cannot classify information to prevent embarrassment of a person, organization, or agency. But that's exactly what they did. And that's what Q's trying to show us, is that Q told us about this before it ever came out or was made public. So that's what that's supposed to point to. Now, the next one here is a screenshot from an Anon of a Breitbart report, which talks about Google hid user data breach from public out of fear of Congress would take action. This is the story we just went over. And Q responds saying, court order to preserve all data sent to Google, think Google Plus, Gmail, etc., comms cleanup. The more you know, Q. So we've talked about in the past how Google played a huge part in this secret communication, global communication system that was being used by certain politicians and other individuals to use these Google Gmail servers and the dead drops, which would be draft emails that were, like I've said before, I've explained this multiple times, but I'll do it one more time. For Gmail to be a dead drop, what they would do is I would have a username and password. I would share it with you. I'd go into Google, I'd write a draft email. So instead of sending that email across the internet, I would just save it as a draft. Then you would use those same login credentials to go log in to read that draft, and then write your own response, and then I would go read it. Now, they thought they were getting around the basically dragnet that collects all information, but they weren't. As Q has alluded to, the NSA has all that information. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at this, kind of from an outside perspective, you can see that Google is at the center of all of this. And it's really a problem. Listen, Google's great. We all love search engines. We all love this huge body of information that's available all the time. We love the I don't have one, but I'm sure some people out there love the little Google Home that they can say, hey, Google, do this for me. Thanks. What's the temperature outside? That's all great. But just as there are problems in every government and in our own government we have to work on, there's problems inside these major corporations with individuals who have these obviously overreaching policies that favor their own agenda and remove their impartiality. So that, to me, is a big problem that we have to look at. And if they were helping, like, for instance, Eric Schmidt going to North Korea to help Kim Jong-un install Google servers, I don't know. But then they said that was a means they've alleged that was a means for communicating. So this is all a part of a bigger, broader, I don't want to use the term conspiracy, but a story that needs to be told. Let's say that. And with that being said, there's going to be more that comes out about this, and we're going to keep following up on it. But has there been a court order to preserve all data sent to Google? Of course. It would seem that now they've basically unleashed this story that's come out in the public, that they hid the fact that all these Gmail accounts were breached, and why do you think they hid it? Well, because it was obviously a way for, it's a convenient way for them to say, oh yeah, well it was breached. What are we going to do? It went to all these third parties, and then the third parties happen to be advertisers and Democrat operations where they're basically trying to source information to influence and meddle, if you will, in our own elections. Oh, this is awful. But yeah, there's going to be more about that, I'm sure. So, and it gives the Breitbart article, obviously. If you guys want to read that, I'll leave the link in the description. So, that is for you guys to check out. Now, the next one has the metaphorical bold brackets around metaphorical kill box, which is basically bold with brackets around Sally Yates' name. So, she may be up next for possibly coming out or being exposed for some sort of actions. Now, I know that there's a lot that could be insinuated, but we haven't heard a lot of reporting about her, but she must have played a huge role at some point as the former acting Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General under President Barack Obama, or Barack Hussein Obama. And so what's going to come out about her? I can't wait to hear this, because she had to have known a lot of this was going on given the time frame that she was acting in those positions. So this is and she was acting she was acting Attorney General under President Trump, and it was all around the time of the transition where we had it go from Loretta Lynch to Sally Yates to Dana Buente. And we have to understand how that power was transferred and what the truth is. And don't forget, Q's told us that Loretta Lynch has been basically talking. Let's put it that way. So we're going to have to see what all that comes to. And then the final thing is this post from Q today, where it gives a couple articles. It gives this Hill article, which is basically talking about how the former FBI lawyer, James Baker, is saying that the plot to record and remove Trump was not a joke. And that's, like I said, we would get to hear another report from John Solomon yesterday talks about how James Baker says that those discussions, now infamous, about wearing a wire by Rod Rosenstein, talking about how he would wear a wire and go in and get the 25th Amendment pulled on President Trump, were not a joke. So if that is the case, what kind of twilight zone are we actually living in here, where you have the Deputy Attorney General, who's the acting Attorney General over the Russia probe, talking about wearing a wire on our own president? Now, if we put together the fact that there's just mountains of unsubstantiated, uncorroborated, unverified accusations that have been thrown against President Trump to create this circus, which is the Russia probe and Russia investigation into Russia and Trump collusion, this is absolutely absurd to think that Rod Rosenstein would actually talk about doing this seriously. I mean, that's just, I can't even give you anything other than it's completely absurd. And it says, as far as Baker was concerned, this was a real plan being discussed. So, and they say it wasn't a real, or it was no laughing matter for the FBI, and that shouldn't be. And so this is what we're hearing about James Baker and how he's uncovering. Now remember, James Baker is a top lawyer at the FBI. He's the one there in these meetings listening to this, right? And if he didn't think it was a joke, I think that we have a big problem that we need to address, right? And then the next one is obviously this Sarah Carter article, which talks about how the former top FBI lawyer, James Baker, testified that Rod Rosenstein seriously considered secretly recording Trump. These people have lost their minds. They actually were considering wearing a wire on the President of the United States. I'm sickened. I'm disgusted. I'll leave links to both those articles if you want to read more. But Q says, boom, 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 boom. Coincidence, the news today is focused on a resignation. Q. No, it shouldn't be, because it's coming out that this was not a joke, that Rod Rosenstein was seriously considering wearing a wire and trying to entrap President Trump without any evidence, obviously for his own political motivations. See, because all this stuff, if it comes out that it's true, that The Steele dossier was from the DNC, which, I mean, this is a lot of it's verified. And then the FBI took that and used these fake news stories that they planted themselves as a predicate to justify using the Steele dossier. And then they presented that Steele dossier, knowing it was unverified, to a FISA court to spy on the president. And they're literally considering, because they can't find any evidence of wrongdoing against President Trump with this supposed collusion between Russia, that they would go to the extent of wearing a wire and trying to get President Trump's cabinet to enact the 25th Amendment against him, even though he's completely sound of mind, and there would be no real reason to do that, or there would be no basis for that. It's all politically motivated is what's coming out. And this is the worst possible scenario, I think, for our republic and our democratic processes that we use within it. I mean, to understand how serious this is, you would have to basically understand that the former administration took authoritarian steps to undermine the ability of a candidate to run an election, to run his own election campaign here in this country. That's third world stuff, man. This is straight out of some dictator's playbook. And I want these people exposed. I want these people held accountable. I want them indicted. I want them taken to the furthest extent the law will provide as far as prosecution. That's what I want as an American citizen. I hope you guys want the same. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think. First of all, if you guys want to help out the channel, stick around for 1 minute and listen to the few things I got to go on to or go into further. First of all, come here and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps the channel out more than you guys will ever know. Also, make sure you watch these videos and share the links. That really helps out too. And leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the bottom in the comment section, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And even if you can't comment, I encourage you to scroll down and read through the comments, because there's always very insightful and wise people down there having a great discussion. So it's really a great tool for you guys if you want to get more information after this video about the posts and all that. There's more breakdowns, there's more insights. It's just really, really a great tool. So also, a couple other ways you can help out the channel. Come over here to my Twitter. You can find Justin Forum Talk on Twitter at Justin_Forum. That's the handle, at Justin_Forum. And when you come here, you get all my great tweets. You get all the videos from YouTube. They automatically get posted here. Plus, you get all the articles from the website that automatically get posted here. And if you're asking what website, it's the official website for Justin Forum Talk. It's justinformednews.com. So if you want more Justin Forum Talk, come here to the website, check it out. It's definitely a tool for you to use. Now, there's a couple other ways you can help out the channel. First of all, they're both financial. If you want to help out and you want to support the creation of this content, you can come over here to Patreon, patreon.com, and you can search Justin Forum Talk. When you come here, click this button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation, and you can give as little as $1 or as much as you want. But when you make that pledge, you can set it and forget it, and know that you're helping support the creation of content on this channel 24/7, 365. So when you guys make the contribution over here on Patreon, just understand that I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And when you go through all this stuff with demonetization, YouTube, and how that works, you'll understand that this is so important that you guys come over here and help me out. And I'm so blessed and thankful for every one of you, every one of my patrons who helps out. Now, some of you may not be interested in doing a monthly thing, but you may want to help out the channel with some a one-time, a little bigger donation or whatever, just a one-time, whatever you can. I really appreciate it. That's why I set up this GoFundMe page. It's gofundme.com/just-informed. Links will be in the description. All you do is come here, click this button to donate now. It's a one-time donation, and you can make it anonymously. So if you want to make an anonymous donation or just a one-time donation, come over here to this GoFundMe page, and I can't tell you how thankful I am for that. Now, before we sign off here, I want to do what I always do, which is talk about God's grace and how it is greater. I always like to wrap up an episode with the most important message of all, which is the message of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ and God and the Holy Spirit, which we can find here in the Bible. And today's episode today's piece of scripture that I want to talk about is Psalm 28. And it's a call to God to give us strength and for us to understand better where our strength should come from. And I'm going to read this to you in its entirety, the whole Psalm 28, because it is that powerful and that profound that I want to share these words with you. So, and then we'll talk about them afterwards for 1 second. It says, Psalm 28, Lord, I call to you, my rock. Do not be deaf to me. If you remain silent to me, I will be like those going down to the pit. Listen to the sound of my pleading when I cry to you for help. When I lift up my hands toward your holy sanctuary, do not drag me away with the wicked, with the evildoers who speak in friendly ways with their neighbors, while malice is in their hearts. Repay them according to what they have done, according to the evil of their deeds. Repay them according to the work of their hands. Give them back what they deserve, because they do not consider what the Lord has done, or the work of his hands. He will tear them down and not rebuild them. May the Lord be praised, for he has heard the sound of my pleading. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart rejoices, and I praise him with my song. The Lord is the strength of his people. He is a stronghold of salvation for his anointed. Save your people, bless your possession, shepherd them, and carry them forever. And that's the call we should all be making to our Lord and Savior, to come into our lives and to create a stronghold of our to be our stronghold and our salvation, and to understand that when we put our full faith in God, God will give us that strength to fight the evil that's out there. And those who do these things, we will reject and we will embrace what is good. We will embrace the things that the Lord has provided us, and we will embrace these great blessings and gifts that the Lord has given. So for those of you out there who are, having trouble, going through problems at work or with family or with friends, especially when it comes to trying to wake them up to some of the things that we discuss here, or if it's just something you're going through on your own, remember, you will always be able to find strength in the Lord, and the Lord will provide sanctuary. He will provide solace. He will provide love and support and courage and wisdom, and you just have to open your heart to God. Reach out to him, pray to him, try to pull your strength from the amazing and great grace that God has for you through him. So that's where I want to leave you guys, and I'll pray for each and every one of you to always become better and to continue to strive for what is right and what is good in your own hearts, as well as what we know is best for the world around us. So I'm going to thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't hit that subscribe button, now is a great time to do it. Come here, click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. But that helps out the channel big time. And I want to say thank you all for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.